Good afternoon. Welcome to day 4 of the Toronto International Film Festival. My name is Tom Powers. I'm the documentary programmer of the festival. Let me say some important thank yous to our lead sponsor, Bell, and our major sponsors, RBC, Bulgari, and Visa, for their continued support. I want to thank our government supporters, the Government of Ontario, Telefilm Canada, and the City of Toronto. I want to remind you this film is eligible for the People's Choice Award and the People's Choice Documentary Award. You can vote for your favorite films at tiff.net/vote. And normally my script, the last thank you is to whatever company is supplying us with this film. But in this case, we're talking about a filmmaker who's so independent that the person I'm thanking is himself, Anand Patwardhan. So thank you, Anand, for supplying us with this film and for being part of every part of the making of it. I look out in this audience, and there's so many people I admire in this room, so many people that I have history with in this room. But there's one guest of ours who's come to the film today that I want to give special recognition to, and that's Alanisa Bomswin, who's here today. One of the great filmmakers of the world. Anand Patwardhan has been at this festival many times before, most recently in 2018 with his film Reason. He is a beloved figure in this city amongst a community of people who care about Indian cinema. If you want to know more about his career, actually, this is what I meant to start with. How many people here have seen one of Anand's films before? Okay, we're among the faithful here. And just show of hands, how many people are seeing one of Anand's films for the first time here today? Oh, well, Jesus, that's almost the same amount of people. Okay. So either way, you're in for a treat. A few days ago in the publication IndieWire, I collected several younger Indian filmmakers, Shaunak Sen, Vinay Shukla, Shirley Abrahams, and others to talk about what Anand's work means to them. So that's something I would encourage you to go Google IndieWire and Anand Patwardhan to read some of those testimonials. For those of you who know his work, you have seen some epic length films, digging deep into the politics of India. This is a film that comes in at a clean 90 minutes, so you have both time to watch and plenty of time to talk about this film, and there'll be so much to talk about afterwards. This film is multi-layered. It's a love story, it's a history, and it's a reflection on values. And it's my great pleasure to bring to the stage, visiting us from Mumbai, Anand Patwardhan.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, everyone, for being here. So I don't really need to say anything about the film. It's a film that began without my knowing it because my parents were getting old and I wanted to preserve their memory. So because I was making, in that same period that I made this film, I was making 3 other films from the late 90s to 2022. My parents both passed away by 2010, so that home movie footage was just sitting. And then during the pandemic, I started looking at home movie footage and started editing that because I wasn't able to go out anyway. And then I realized that this could be more than just a home movie, that it could have meaning for people outside the family. So that's what you have now. In a way, it's a looking at, it's become an oral history of India's freedom struggle because my parents were, on both sides, their families were also involved in the freedom struggle. Okay.
After the film, Anand will be back with my colleague Meenakshi Shetty to have a conversation and answer your questions. Thank you for being here.
Congratulations on a very, very, very deeply moving documentary. You've had a huge, magnificent body of work that's acclaimed everywhere. Were you very hesitant to, initially, to make something personal, put yourself on film, your family, and what did it take to convince yourself that this was important to share?
Yeah, so there's one other film, War and Peace, in
Of
which
course.
I did it in first person narrative, but otherwise, all these years I've never,
Right.
I mean, I've done narration, but I've not narrated as me.
Correct. Right.
Um,
Can you hear him? Or
can
can
you,
you put,
am I,
yeah, a little
yeah,
closer. Thank you.
okay. So in War and Peace, I did it because it was going to be called an anti-national film. It was against nuclear weapons when we were celebrating nuclear weapons, and so I had to foreground that my family fought for independence. So I did that a little bit in that film.
Right.
But this is the first time that, and even my uncles actually never talked about being part of the freedom struggle that much. My Achyut Kaka never spoke about it because by this, towards the end of his life, he had sort of given up on politics, and he became a Krishnamurtiite and he started schools and things like that. So he didn't want to talk about the past. And at that time I was not a filmmaker yet, so I mean I wasn't filming. So um, yeah, so by the time I start the story, both my uncles, the main protagonists against the in the freedom struggle, were already gone. So what we are hearing is their brothers talking about them.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. The tone of most of your films earlier has been fairly combative, demanding accountability, demanding justice, fighting for larger principles. But the tone here is much more one of lament, looking back. Is that something that just came spontaneously, or because it was made over a long period of time? Or was it something that also developed consciously?
Yeah, not really, because it was really a story about my parents, and so the freedom struggle was part. It was the backdrop, um, and so I was following that story, and I, as I told you, I didn't think about making a film for a long time. It was only towards the end. And when I looked at the testimony of the oral history, then I thought it would be useful to others.
Sure.
And then I realized that actually it's talking about an India that doesn't exist right now. And so I think reminding people of what we could have been was
Sure.
important.
Sure. Are there any questions? I would really welcome if you have responses or any questions to ask. You just raise your hands and we can pass the mic. Any questions? Yes, please. Can you stand up and speak a little louder?
So, in some funny way, the fact that I had a camera in my hand and was filming, I was dealing with my grief because I was, rather than giving into it, I was saying, oh, wait, I will keep telling the story. As I said, there was no conscious beginning, but the oldest footage in the film is probably what my mother shot of my uncle when he was in Chennai on her VHS camera, um, and and then I was shooting by the late 90s, the mid 90s onwards, a little bit here and there. And then I kept shooting right. Even after they'd passed away, I filmed some other things that I needed to tell the whole story, like uh, uh, the demonstration in Azad Maidan, which happened in 2019, so long after they had already gone. But it was something that was needed to tell, to fill in the story.
Yeah, I was part of that too. I think many can connect.
50 years. No, in this film, about no, about uh, 18 years or so. Yeah.
I'll just repeat the questions
Yeah.
for people who couldn't hear. So he says he's from Karachi and he wanted to know Anand's experience of visiting Karachi.
So I went the first time to Pakistan in after the nuclear tests because we were part of. I'm part of an organization that tries to exchange people-to-people visits to both countries. And I went in 1999 the first time, and but then I've been 5, 6 times on different occasions. And in fact, my film War and Peace won an award in Karachi Festival before it was shown. It was shown in India, but and then it won an award in the Mumbai Festival. So it's yeah, it's been a film that was well received in by not by the governments but by people. Yeah.
I'll just take a moment to paraphrase for people who didn't hear the question clear. She's asking about also about Israel and Palestine and similar to situation in India, and asking also whether visits are still possible and his personal connection to both those divisions, partitions.
Funnily, um, many of my films, when people from Israel or Palestine see them, they keep saying, "This is our story as well." I mean, whether it was In the Name of God about the demolition of the Babri Mosque, because there's contestation for one location of faith, two religions are contesting for that, and there's so many parallels. Of course, we have the same enemy. We have the British who did divide and rule in both places and created the mess in the first place. And we have rising fascism in India and in Israel. So there's so many parallels. And if we're talking about Gandhi, for instance, Gandhi was one of the few world leaders who opposed the creation of Israel before Israel was created. He spoke out before Israel and after also on two different occasions. He said that he sympathizes with the Jews who were killed in the Holocaust, but they should have made a homeland in the place where they were oppressed and not go to take somebody else's land.
I also wanted to ask, in hindsight, having made the film already, do you feel sometimes that because I think the overwhelming feeling for me when I see the film is one of vulnerability of yourself of you making yourself vulnerable, and I'm wondering whether whether vulnerability gives you a different kind of connection with the world at large, a different kind of power, a different kind of a different kind of warmth with your audience than your earlier films would have had.
Well, this is the first screening, so we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
But but yeah, it's a difficult film not only for me to have made, but even to watch. That's
Yeah,
time because
yeah, yeah.
it but I think it's worth it to actually take people on the journey because
True.
it's hopefully it's a less angry film than my other films,
Yes.
so, and maybe that can work better.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
it works differently as well. Yes, please.
Yeah, she was like that. She didn't express her love in the obvious way, but it was always there, and I could feel it. So it was I didn't demand it of her. That I mean, and I mean, pottery was her first love, and that's something that I grew up with because I did feel abandoned when I was 8 years old when she went off to be a potter all over the world, and I had to go to boarding school. Uh, yeah. Um, to be honest, uh, I related with my father always. I had much closer relationship in the sense that, but they had a division of labor in the sense that my father never scolded me even, let alone beat me. My mother had to do the disciplining. So in a sense, it was unfair because I had that, but I understood that only later in life, and also, yeah. So. Um, And in terms of the contribution to the freedom struggle, my father's family was much more active, you know, socialists and Gandhians. And my grandfather was, in a sense, a businessman who donated money to the freedom struggle. So that was his contribution. Are you Sikh? Or Sikh? Yeah, yeah, yeah. The reason I asked that is because with In Memory of Friends, which I used to show in Canada quite openly many times in the past because Memory of Friends, by the way, was made during the height of Khalistan movement, but it's a film that talks about uh, people being killed from both sides. Sikhs in Punjab being killed by the Indian army and I mean Indian police forces, uh, but the Khalistanis were also killing both Sikhs and Hindus in Punjab, and ordinary people were being killed on both sides. And I followed a group of people who were taking the memory of Bhagat Singh, who was a Sikh who became part of the left movement and wrote Why I'm an Atheist. And they were taking his memory all through Punjab uh, to build unity between Hindus and Sikhs. But that film is hard to show in Canada today. Even the left is afraid to show it. Yeah. Yeah, and they also pay homage to Gandhi's killers all the time, secretly. I mean, not so secretly, but not in front of G20 gang. They promote Gandhi's image. They promote Ambedkar's image that they have nothing to do with. That they have, I mean, who are their actual and Bhagat Singh even sometimes. So yeah, it's complete appropriation is what's going on.
I wanted to ask if you anticipate any trouble for, or this is the easiest film, or still have trouble showing it in India. What do you anticipate?
I hope that they will be too embarrassed to suppress this. If they do it,
Yeah.
okay, let's take it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bravo. Thank you so much, Anand, for a wonderful
Thank you.
screening. Thank you to all of you for being a great audience. Thank you. Thank you.